Hi, I'm Talon, and recently I've decided that I wanted to investigate a particular issue in the literary community, and that is the defining of literacy itself. Now, I've read several articles and watched several videos over what people believe could be the true definition of literacy, but currently there's not one concrete answer to that. And that got me thinking, with all these different scholarly writings and videos, what do non-scholars have to say about this? So, in order to investigate, I went out to random places and asked people what they thought would be considered literate and what they thought the definition of literacy would be. And here's what I found.
So, how would you go about defining literacy?
I guess I would say literacy is kind of like the ability to read well in a way, I guess, or know what you're reading about, or know what you're saying when you talk and stuff, I guess, like that in a way.
Would you consider yourself literate?
For the most part, yeah.
So, with that in mind, what do you think is something that everyone who is literate should know?
I think they should know in general, just basic, English composition rules and, know how to speak well with people, not talk just complete idiots, I guess. I mean, we're not animals here. I mean, that's what I would say, pretty much.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Welcome.
So, if you were to define literacy, how would you go about defining it?
I would define literacy as the ability to be able to read and write well.
And would you consider yourself a highly literate person?
I would, yes.
Now, with that in mind, how do you think we should judge literacy? In order to be literate, what do you think is something that people should know?
I would define to be able to be literate to be able to write a proliferant amount and be able to read a simple book.
Thank you for that. Yeah, really helpful. Thanks, bud. So, in your opinion, what is the definition of literacy?
I think the definition of literacy is the ability to understand or command a given language. So, the ability to comprehend written word is literacy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what do you think is something that everyone should know? In order to be considered literate, everyone should know particular things. So, in the United States, what's something that you think everyone should just know?
I think so I teach on Tuesdays at the jail, and the people I teach, some of them didn't graduate high school, and none of them are English as their first language, but a lot of them who grew up speaking Spanish don't even know how to spell or properly read Spanish words. And I think that everybody should know and understand at least one language very well, because it's unfortunate when people get put into bad situations and are no longer able to gain the knowledge that you can from being properly literate.
That makes sense. So you think that everyone has to have some kind of fluency in a particular language in order to be considered really literate?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time.
No problem.
So what do you believe that the definition of literacy is?
To me, I think literacy is defined as taking written word and making sure you can comprehend it and turn it into things that you can understand.
That makes sense. So with that in mind, what do you think is something that anyone who is considered literate should know?
Quite obviously, I think someone who's literate should be able to read. That's probably the number one thing you should focus on.
All right, thank you. Now, what do you believe that the definition of literacy is?
When I think of literacy, I think of books, things that are written down. What do you guys think? Words?
Literacy can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I was kind of interested in knowing what you guys thought.
I guess language, written, spoken, but I guess mainly written language.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to understand or comprehend written words.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Seems like
Definitely agree with that one. No.
Why do you think I was quiet? It was just baking in my mind trying to say it.
I didn't say the ability, but yeah.
Now, what do you guys believe? Like, as literate people, what should you know? Like, if you're literate, you automatically know this. This is what it means to be literate. So, like, just something you kind of.
Probably that you know how to read. You can communicate your thoughts and ideas through literature, through writing, and you can comprehend other people's ideas and thoughts through reading and what they write.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What did you say?
Pretty much what she said.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys a lot. This is really helpful.
Now, after doing all those interviews, I noticed that they all kind of had a similar idea as to what they thought was literacy, and that was this idea of just being able to read and comprehend something. And that was kind of odd to me because I assumed, just based on the demographic of the people that I did interview, most of them being about under the age of 40, that they would have mentioned something about digital literacy and like working with computers or being able to manipulate multimedia devices, but that just didn't come up. They all focused almost entirely on physical written texts and understanding those. And with the different things that I've come across, like pluralism, which basically defines literacy as being broken up into a bunch of subcategories such as cultural literacy and digital literacy. Now, I assumed that that kind of thing would come up, but again, it didn't. So, which makes me wonder if one of the possible reasons for having this undefined literacy is that we are taught basically to define literacy just by written texts because digital literacy hasn't been incorporated into a lot of the educational systems, at least I guess not in the educational systems of the people that I interviewed. So an interesting follow-up to this might be to go and interview smaller children on what literacy is, and since a lot of school systems now do incorporate iPads, maybe they would have a different idea of what literacy really is. So I hope you all enjoyed these interviews and videos, and perhaps you yourself can come up with a new definition for literacy.